The heart monitor beeped in slow, uneven rhythms, soft enough to whisper but loud enough to break a father's spirit. Billionaire Grant Hartwell stood frozen beside his 7-year-old son's hospital bed, his reflection ghosting in the glass panel of the silent room. In his world, problems were always solvable, buyable, reparable, negotiable. But not this. Not the trembling little chest rising beneath a sea of white sheets. Not the bruised fragility of life slipping quietly through tiny fingers he scarcely held. The boy's eyes, pale as dawn, blinked faintly toward his father. "Daddy," Eliam murmured, voice thin, each word like a feather brushing death's door. "You promised we'd go to the lake this weekend." Grant opened his mouth, but the promise drowned in guilt. He had said those words before, always later, when the deal closes, after the board meeting, when things calm down. But that later had run out of time. Have you ever stood beside someone you love, realizing you loved them too late? If this moment breaks your heart, hit like right now, and comment where you're watching from. Let's see where love still matters. Silence settled across the room like a second skin. Machines murmured, nurses whispered, and a faint drizzle outside tapped against the glass like tears God had forgotten to hold back. In a corner, Liana Brooks, the family maid, knelt in quiet prayer. Her dark hands, worn yet strong, clutched a small silver cross. She had been more present in this boy's childhood than the father who funded it. When Grant was building towers that pierced the clouds, Liana had been holding Eliam's hand during storms he couldn't name. Now, her tears fell in rhythm with the heartbeat monitor, one drop, one beep. "Miss Liana," Eliam whispered, barely audible. "Sing the song." Grant watched in still disbelief as she began to hum, low, trembling, drenched in pain. A lullaby from her grandmother's South Carolina porch. Something about angels standing guard at the door. Each note broke through the sterile air, peeling back the illusion money could buy peace. Grant felt the sound crawl under his skin, fighting its way into the hollow he'd carved from years of absence. Liana finished softly, laying her hand on the boy's arm. "Rest now, sweetheart. Mama's still here." Something cracked inside Grant, the kind of fracture no surgeon could fix. For the first time in his 52 years, he realized he wasn't afraid of losing a deal. He was terrified of losing his child. The doctor cleared his throat quietly at the doorway. "Mr. Hartwell, we've done everything we can." The sentence hung there, unfinished, merciless. Grant's world had always revolved around numbers, profits, stocks, contracts, valuations. But no number could translate what he felt now. Grief didn't balance on spreadsheets. Regret couldn't be outsourced. He stepped closer to the bed, watching Eliam's small chest rise, fall, pause. "Son," he whispered, the word shaky on his lips like a foreign prayer. "Remember when I told you we'd build a treehouse bigger than the backyard?" The boy smiled weakly. "You were too busy, Daddy." Grant closed his eyes. His empire had been built on attention to detail, every clause, every decimal, but he had missed the details that mattered most: birthdays, story nights, dinnertime laughter. He looked across the room at Liana, who met his gaze, eyes swollen with exhaustion but fierce with faith. "Do something," he choked out, not to her, not to anyone, but to the universe itself. But the only answer was the slowing beep of the monitor. Liana leaned closer to Eliam, her whisper trembling. "Your daddy's here, love. You can rest, baby boy." The child turned slightly, eyes fluttering open. "Miss L," he said softly. "If I don't wake up tomorrow, tell Daddy I'm not angry anymore." She froze, tears spilling freely now. Grant's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, he believed time might stop just to spare him this sound. "Promise me," Eliam added, clasping Liana's hand. "Promise you'll tell him when I'm gone." She nodded, sobbing silently, unable to respond in words. The boy's eyes drifted shut again. The monitor beeped slower, slower, then still. Grant didn't scream. He didn't collapse. He just stood there as though his body refused to accept he was real. Liana reached out, brushing Eliam's hair. She whispered a prayer only her heart could finish, and gently closed the boy's eyes. The light in the room somehow dimmed. Grant stumbled backward into the cold chair behind him, head in his hands. His reflection in the window watched him fall apart, rich and powerless in equal measure. His sobs came late, like everything he'd done as a father. Outside, rain gathered strength, streaking down the tall glass window like the world was crying in his place. Nurses entered quietly to remove equipment, their faces drawn with the kind of sympathy that came from repetition, but this time, it was different. This was not another patient. This was the billionaire whose money had seemed infinite, standing helpless before what money could never touch. Grant rose, slowly approaching the bed. He ran his hand over the small blue blanket, softer than most of the things he'd ever owned. "I'd give everything," he whispered, voice breaking, "for one more story, one more laugh." The sound of thunder echoed like a reply from heaven. Across the room, Liana's prayer broke into pleading. "Lord, don't let this break him beyond repair." But something inside him already had. He looked down at the floor, and something caught his eye, a folded paper tucked under Eliam's pillow. Childlike handwriting sprawled across the front, "For Daddy." Grant hesitated, hands trembling, and carefully unfolded the note. Inside was a crayon drawing. Two stick figures, one tall, one small, standing beside a lake under a messy yellow sun. At the bottom, in uneven letters, "Next weekend, no excuses." Grant pressed the paper to his chest and crumpled to the floor, sobbing harder than he had in decades. Liana stepped forward slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "He just wanted you, sir. That's all he ever wanted." Grant couldn't look up. "He got me too late," he said hoarsely. "I gave him everything except myself." The hospital janitor paused at the doorway, not out of curiosity but reverence. The air in the room felt sacred now, a place where guilt and grace had collided. Hours passed. The storm outside softened into steady drizzle. Grant stared through the glass, city lights flickering in the distance like dying stars. He thought about every night he'd missed tucking Eliam in, every birthday he'd turned into a belated call. The weight of those moments pressed against him until breathing became an effort. He turned to Liana. "What did he mean?" "What do you mean, sir?" "His last words." "You heard something I didn't." Her lips trembled. "Mr. Hartwell, that's not my story to tell. Not tonight." Grant frowned, confusion mingling with pain. He said, "If I don't wake up, tell Daddy something." You looked at him like you understood. She swallowed hard, eyes glistening. "You'll know when you're ready." It wasn't for now. Grant stared at her, disbelief circling his grief. "You're saying there's more?" She only nodded, stepping closer to place the folded drawing on the bedside table. Then she wiped her eyes and whispered, "There's always more when love dies unfinished." The clock ticked softly in the corner, seconds stretching into silence. Grant turned toward the door, his reflection trailing beside him. "He had secrets from me," he said quietly. "And you helped him keep them." "I helped him hold on to hope," she replied. "A hope you never gave him yourself." The words burned deep but true. If you've ever lost someone before you could say what mattered, drop a heart and comment your city name below. Let's see how many of us know that ache. Grant froze at the doorway, clutching the small note again. His hands shook, not from anger but surrender. He turned back once more toward the bed. "Goodbye, son," he whispered. "I'll see you, at the lake." As the door closed softly behind him, Liana looked down at Eliam's still form. She reached for her pocket and touched something, the other half of a folded message the boy had written earlier that week. The one he told her to read only when the rain stops. Outside, the drizzle faded. The clouds parted slowly, and a single beam of moonlight entered the room, falling directly across the boy's face. Liana's breath caught as she unfolded the hidden slip of paper. Tears blurred her vision as she read 4 shaky words written in bright green crayon. "Promise you'll tell him." She looked toward the door where Grant had vanished, her whisper trembling into the dark hall. "I will, baby boy," she said softly. "Just not yet." The night swallowed her words, leaving only silence and the slow hum of a world that had just changed forever. Liana's secret promise remains undisclosed. The house that once echoed with laughter now spoke in whispers. Every sound, clinking cutlery, quiet footsteps, the faint creak of the grand staircase, carried a ghost in it. Beneath the chandelier, Grant Hartwell stood in his living room surrounded by flowers that meant nothing. Reporters had flooded the gates all morning, branding headlines with pitying words, "Billionaire mourns son's tragic death." The sympathy of the world had become a performance he didn't want to attend. But the silence of the halls, the absence of a 7-year-old's voice calling, "Dad," was louder than any headline could be. The air still smelled faintly of Eliam's cherry-flavored medicine. The boy's drawings, once stuck on walls by Liana's careful hands, now drooped from the corners. Grant's assistant, nervous and unsure, stood by the door holding a stack of condolence letters. "Sir, people are asking about the funeral." "Not now." The tone ended the conversation. He looked toward the staircase where Eliam used to slide down and burst into laughter. The sight drained him. His heart wanted to collapse, but his pride refused to fall. He turned to the window, where rain stained the glass the same way it had the night Eliam died. His reflection stared back, eyes bloodshot, face drawn. The world called him powerful. But in this frame of grief, he looked like a man begging God to trade him for a child. Upstairs, the faint hum of gospel music drifted through the hallway. He recognized the voice. It was Liana Brooks. Grant's hands clenched. The sound of her singing always made the boy feel safe. Now, it reminded him of all the safety money couldn't buy. He climbed the stairs slowly, one heavy step after another, toward the guest quarters, toward the only person brave enough to stay near the wreckage of his guilt. Liana was sitting at the edge of a neatly made bed, folding one of Eliam's shirts with gentle precision. Her hair glistened with stray tears under the thin morning light. A small, half-packed suitcase lay by her feet. "You're leaving?" he asked quietly. She looked up, startled but calm. "The house doesn't need a maid now, Mr. Hartwell. The child who needed me is gone." Grant stepped closer, every word scraped his throat raw. "He left something for me, didn't he?" Liana's hands froze mid-fold. "He left plenty, sir. Just not all of it was for you." He swallowed. The note under his pillow. He wrote another one. Grant blinked. "Another?" "Yes. One he made me promise to keep. Like if this moment hits you deeply, some pain can't be bought away." The silence stretched. Wind pressed softly against the glass. Grant's patience broke. "Then tell me what it said." "I can't. Can't or won't." She met his eyes, the firmness in her voice still gentle. "Sir, it wasn't meant for you yet. He wanted time to do its work before truth did." "Time?" Grant scoffed bitterly. "Time already took him." Liana stood, clutching the folded shirt to her chest. Her composure cracked only slightly. "You gave him the world, sir. But you starved him of presence. The note he wrote, he wanted you to find peace before you read it." He exhaled sharply, looking away. "Peace? How do I make peace with burying my son?" Her reply came soft but steady, "By forgiving yourself before trying to resurrect what's gone." The tension coiled between them. Her eyes shimmered with the weight of unspoken grief. Grant paced toward the dresser, where a framed photograph of Eliam smiled back at him, messy-haired, holding a bubble wand. "Every time I look at him, I see what I never gave," he whispered. "What peace could possibly survive that?" Liana stepped forward, shoes brushing against the carpet. He forgave you first, sir. Before you ever thought to ask. The words pierced him deeper than any insult could. He turned sharply, voice trembling with suppressed wrath. If he wanted to forgive, why couldn't he tell me? Why use you as his messenger? Her lips quivered. He said, you listened better when love came through someone else. Grant froze. His chest felt like breaking glass. He dropped into the nearest chair, head in his hands. You think I don't already hate myself enough? Liana knelt before him, her voice weighed with both courage and sorrow. Then don't let hate be the last thing he leaves behind. Thunder cracked distantly. The rain began again, as though the skies refused to let calm last too long. Grant covered his face, but tears dripped through his fingers anyway. He was all I had left of her, he said finally. It was the first time he mentioned his late wife in years. The business world knew her only as a footnote in his biography. But to him, she was the origin of everything soft he had ever buried. Liana placed the folded shirt on his lap, her eyes dark with empathy. He used to ask me if you still talked to her picture. Said he thought she could hear from heaven. Grant's throat tightened. He asked that. Almost every night. He sat upright, eyes glistening with disbelief. And what did you tell him? I told him you did, sir. She hesitated. Even when you didn't. Grant didn't respond. There was nothing left in his chest to resist her honesty anymore. The armor had fallen, all that remained was the sound of his breath shaking. He glanced at her suitcase. Where will you go? Back to South Carolina. My daughter teaches music there now. I'll help her in the evenings. Something about her calmness made him angry again, not at her, but at the universe that could move forward while he stood still. As she turned to zip the bag, an envelope slid from beneath her coat. Grant noticed the handwriting immediately, childlike, colorful, painfully familiar. He stepped forward and caught it before it hit the ground. This handwriting, his voice faltered. It's his. Liana froze. Please, give it back. Grant stared at the cover. It read, not yet, Daddy. He felt the room tilt. Each letter, each childish swirl, stabbed through the fog of grief with unbearable precision. So it's true, he whispered. He left this with you. I wasn't supposed to, she stammered. I deserve to know what my son thought before he... Stop, she interrupted, tears welling up. If you open that now, you'll misunderstand his heart. And if you do, everything he hoped for ends wasted. Her voice broke at the edge of her strength. Grant froze. Rage burned behind his grief, but her conviction disarmed it. He lowered the envelope slowly, his fingers trembling. Then when you've done what he asked you to do. And what's that? She looked at him squarely. Find who you were before the money made you proud and made him lonely. Grant took a step back. He said that. He didn't need to, she said quietly. You can hear it in everything he left behind. Like this if you believe love speaks louder than regret. Subscribe for more heartfelt stories. Rain hammered the roof, relentless. The mansion lights flickered. In that moment, the entire house felt smaller, like it too was shrinking under the weight of grief. Downstairs, the doorbell rang. Grant didn't move, but a staff member ushered in a courier carrying a small parcel. It was wrapped in blue paper, the kind used for children's gifts. This was left at the hospital for you, sir, the courier said. Grant took it quietly, his fingers cold. He tore open the paper and lifted the lid. Inside was a toy car, Iliam's favorite one, and a folded page. On the first line, Daddy, I'm sorry for hiding one of your watches in the garden. Please don't be mad. Grant exhaled, torn between a sob and a laugh. Liana whispered behind him, he tried to fix every little wrong before he left. But there was more on the page. A smaller note taped beneath, Miss L knows where. It's for you. Don't be sad when you find it. Grant looked up sharply. The garden? Liana nodded. He wanted you to find something he buried there. Subscribe right now if you think he's about to discover something unexpected. Grant moved to the back door, rain washing his shoes as he stepped out. The lamps cast a dim glow across the sprawling garden. Liana followed cautiously. They reached the big oak tree, the one Ilium always begged to climb. Mud covered its roots, but there was an unnatural mound halfway down. Grant knelt, trembling, and began digging with his bare hands, soil caking his fingers until he struck something solid, a wooden box, small, water-stained. He opened it slowly. Inside lay one of his gold watches, yes, but beneath it, another folded note. He wiped the dirt off before unfolding it. Daddy, time is mean. Don't chase it anymore. Please make it stay happy like before. Grant pressed his palm against the ground, breaking down completely. He buried the one thing I treasured most, he whispered. He was begging me to stop watching time slip away. Liana knelt beside him, tears streaming. Sir. I think he wanted you to start living instead of counting. They stayed there under the cold rain, two souls tethered by a boy's innocent wisdom. Grant let the mud soak his suit, not caring anymore. Where does forgiveness even begin? He asked quietly. Liana answered gently, it starts with keeping your promises. Even the ones you were late to keep. He looked up, eyes heavy yet alive for the first time in years. Then we start tomorrow. Lightning flashed across the sky as they both rose. But before they could move, a faint sound drifted from the distance, music, coming from inside the house. It was Ilium's voice, playing back from the digital monitor above his old bed. Grant froze. Liana clutched his arm as the recording repeated softly. Miss L, if Daddy forgets, play this for him. So he remembers what I said. The message looped once more before cutting out completely. Liana whispered trembling, Sir, we never played that before. Grant turned toward the mansion, drenched, shaking, somewhere between awe and fear. Then we weren't supposed to. Not until now. Like and subscribe if you believe some love never leaves the room. The recorded message reveals Ilium left more unsaid. The recording had ended hours ago, but its echo still wove through the house. Miss L, if Daddy forgets, play this for him. Those few words looped in Grant Hartwell's mind like a melody he couldn't unhear. The tone in his son's voice wasn't sorrow, it was calm, somehow forgiving. That was what haunted him most. Grant sat alone in his study, surrounded by fragments of his past. Dozens of old photos lay scattered across the mahogany table. Ilium's toothless grin. His wife's laughter frozen in a summer photograph. A paper boat they made during a rare weekend together, its edges now yellow from time. He pressed a palm to his forehead. The weight of wealth felt heavier than poverty ever could. Down the hall, faint footsteps approached. Then came a quiet knock. Sir. It was Liana Brooks. He didn't look up. I'm not in the mood for more condolences. I'm not here for that, she said, walking in quietly. You need to see this. She held out an envelope. Transparent tape sealed its edges, the handwriting uneven and childlike. Grant recognized the colors of the crayon scrawled across the top, blue and orange, Ilium's favorite. He hesitated before taking it. Where did you find it? In the boy's old backpack. I was organizing his things for donation. Grant turned the envelope in his hands. Something inside rattled lightly, paper clips, maybe, or a small charm. But across the front, 5 faint words nearly tore his breath away. For when Daddy listens again. He stared at it for a long moment before speaking. You knew this existed? I suspected. He hid things for a reason. Grant's jaw tightened. And what reason could a 7-year-old have to hide from his father? Liana's voice softened. The same reason his father hid from love. He looked up sharply, but before anger could rise, he saw the sorrow swimming in her eyes. That tenderness disarmed him. If this broke your heart, like and subscribe. Some pain teaches what nothing else can. Grant breathed deeply, tearing open the seal. Inside was a wrinkled drawing of a playground, the public one by Riverdale Park, the place where his driver often told him the boy begged to visit. At the bottom, written in shaky letters. Miss L says the swings feel like flying. I wanted you to come. Grant sank back, trembling. It wasn't just a drawing. It was a map. He stood abruptly. Get my car ready. Now. Liana asked. Now. Rain had given way to a distant sunset when their car arrived at the old park. The gates were chained, paint peeling, the world inside swallowed by overgrown grass. Grant hadn't been there since college days, a lifetime before skyscrapers and suits. When he stepped out, the wind carried faint laughter, echoes of children long gone. He closed his eyes for a second, imagining his son on those swings, hair ruffling in sunlight. Liana's soft voice pulled him back. He used to talk about this place, she said. Said he wanted you to see what flying felt like when you didn't have money. Grant walked over to the swings. Rusted chains squealed as one moved slightly, stirred by wind, or memory. He reached for the seat, touched the cold metal, and saw a name scratched faintly into the underside. E.L. Eliam's initials. Something inside him cracked wide open. He sank to one knee, brushing dirt and rain off the steel frame. He came here with you. Sometimes, she admitted. It was our little escape. Grant nodded slowly. The pain wasn't in her honesty, it was in the realization that someone else had given his son the kind of memories he should have made himself. A faint noise interrupted them, a boy's laughter, near the old sandbox. They turned, startled. A child stood there, holding a paper airplane made from a hospital form. His clothes were worn, shoes torn. Hey, Grant called gently. Where did you get that? The boy looked nervous. Your son gave it to me. Grant froze. When? The day he got sick, the boy murmured. We shared marshmallows in the waiting room. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a note folded into a triangle. He said to give this to his dad one day, if I ever saw him sad. Liana covered her mouth, choking back emotion. Grant unfolded the tiny paper. Inside, written in blue crayon again. If he gets lost, tell him I still remember the story about the stars. Grant's throat tightened. He looked at the sky, it was already dark, but scattered silver sparked between the clouds. The story about the stars, he repeated softly. He made me tell that when he was 3. Said each star was someone waiting to be forgiven. Liana said quietly, then maybe it's time you forgave yourself. Grant didn't answer. His focus locked on the small boy standing before him. He kneeled down, softening his tone. Do you want a ride home? I don't really have one, the child said, shrugging. Liana's heart broke visibly. Grant paused, then offered a hand. You can come back with us tonight. Just one night. The boy hesitated, then nodded. As they walked back to the car, Grant glanced one last time at the old swings. A gust of wind made it move again, creaking like a quiet farewell. Inside the car, silence settled heavy. The child stared out the window while Liana clutched the note like something sacred. Grant drove through the night streets slower than he ever had before. When they arrived at the mansion, he led the boy to the living room. The walls, once sterile, now glowed with faint fragments of warmth. Stay here, Grant said softly. I'll get you something to eat. The boy nodded, curious eyes scanning the photographs. He noticed one of Eliam on the piano bench and whispered, he looks happy there. Liana joined him by the frame. He was, she replied. when he was near music or kindness. Later, as the boy slept on the couch wrapped in one of Eliam's old blankets, Liana found Grant in the study again. He was staring at an open drawer filled with sealed documents. Estate papers, she guessed. He nodded numbly. Everything he would have inherited. And I don't know why any of it matters now. That's because it matters more to who you still have left, she said softly. Grant looked over. You mean that boy downstairs? Yes. You think it's coincidence Eliam found him in the hospital? That note wasn't random. Maybe your son's grace is the bridge you both needed. Grant stood silent, absorbing her words. He closed the drawer slowly. The grandfather clock chimed midnight, deep and exhausting. He exhaled. If I start again, he said, where would I even begin? With what your son said, she answered. Find who you were before you got lost in what you built. Grant's gaze moved to the window. Beyond it, the city shimmered faintly, but it no longer dazzled him. For years, I thought success was what would prove me worthy. And now? He looked back at her with eyes raw from sleepless nights. Now I realize worth isn't proven. It's given, and I wasted all my chances to give it back. Like and subscribe if you believe regret can still learn to love. She approached him slowly. Tomorrow, go see the shelters he gave his toys to. Maybe that's where your answers wait. He nodded faintly. You'll come with me? Yes, she said. He wanted us both to keep one promise together. He frowned. What promise? But she turned away before answering, her expression guarded. You'll see. The moment stretched into silence. Grant gazed toward the hallway where faint breathing drifted from the couch, the orphan child sleeping peacefully beneath his son's blanket. A strange warmth flickered in his chest, fragile but alive. He walked to his desk, lit a small lamp, and unfolded one of Eliam's old sketches again. The playground. The swings. Above them, faint stars drawn in blue. At the corner of the page, almost hidden, 3 small words in a child's crooked scrawl. Keep helping kids. Grant closed his eyes. It wasn't about money anymore. It was instruction. Commandment. Redemption signed in crayon. He whispered to the empty room, I hear you now, son. Suddenly, something clicked in the back of his mind, the word again from the envelope's front. For when Daddy listens again. Not when he listens, finally. Again. He looked up sharply at Liana, realization dawning. He said, again. That means he thought I'd stop, but start once more. Liana turned, eyes soft but intense. Then don't make him wrong. Grant stood, his tall frame shadowing the lamp's glow. Tomorrow, he said quietly, I go back to those shelters. One at a time. She smiled faintly. Eliam would like that. The clock ticked on, marking a new rhythm in the billionaire's life, a rhythm free from the old cadence of deals and deadlines. Downstairs, the boy stirred in his sleep, murmuring something faint, Daddy, don't forget the stars. Grant froze. He walked closer, heart pounding, but the child slept on. Still, the words echoed through the hall like Eliam's voice reborn. And for the first time since that night in the hospital, Grant felt something other than grief. Hope. It was fragile, yes, but alive. He stepped outside, needing air, and looked up. The city sky had cleared, revealing a handful of bright constellations breaking through the dark. Above him, they shimmered like forgiveness made visible. All right, son, he whispered. I'll listen again. Behind him, Liana watched quietly, clutching the boy's note. She could feel that the promise was only half fulfilled. Tomorrow held the rest. Like and subscribe before the next promise is revealed. Grant plans to visit the shelters, unaware of what awaits there. The orphan boy slept soundly in the blue guest room, the hum of the rain against the window his lullaby. For the first time in years, Grant Hartwell stood outside a closed door not as a father trying to control the world, but as a man afraid of entering it. He lingered there, hand resting on the doorknob, just listening. Each shallow breath of the child inside sounded like his son's ghost repeating what happiness used to feel like. Across the hall, Liana Brooks waited by the family photo wall, dim morning light tracing the edges of her tired eyes. "You're not ready to go inside yet," she said softly. Grant's jaw tightened. He looked so much like Eliam. She nodded. "That's why he's here. Sometimes the world gives us echoes instead of miracles." Grant looked down at his hands, strong enough to move markets, yet helpless against the weight of memory. "I promised Eliam I'd go to those shelters. I meant it." "Then start today," she said. "His toys are already there. Maybe something waits for you too." Grant blinked at her, the faintest flicker of purpose stirring where despair had lived. "You're coming with me." Liana hesitated but nodded. He wanted that. If this moment moved you, like and subscribe before the story continues. They drove in silence through the early morning fog. Outside, the city crawled awake, men with briefcases, kids waiting for buses, street vendors counting hopes by the coin. Grant's black sedan looked alien amid the poverty surrounding River Street shelter. When they parked, a volunteer recognized Liana instantly. "You're the lady who brought the toys," the woman said with a grateful smile. "The little ones haven't stopped sharing them since." Liana nodded shyly. "They belong to Eliam," she said, voice trembling. Grant followed quietly, scanning faded walls painted with handprints. Each color carried laughter, fingerprints of strangers his money had never touched. The volunteer led them to a small playroom. In one corner stood a worn brown box labeled in crayon, "Eliam's Things, for Friends." Grant knelt and opened it. Inside were action figures, a soccer ball, and a notebook covered in bright stickers. His breath caught, the handwriting on the cover was unmistakable. "His notebook," he whispered. "He never went anywhere without this." He opened the first page. Scrawled across it, uneven color lines read, "For when I can't talk but Daddy still wants to listen." That first line hit him harder than any investor's betrayal ever had. He turned the next page slowly. Each one holding the fragments of a childhood he had missed. Drawings of him and Eliam fishing at the non-existent lake. Notes like, "Daddy works a lot, but one day he'll stay." And later, "Miss L says Daddy keeps love inside a safe. I hope I find the key." He stopped reading and looked up, tears glimmered on Liana's cheeks. She asked gently, "Would you like to read the end?" Grant hesitated, then nodded. The final page shook in his hands. It read, "If time runs out, Daddy still has one job, make others happy again." He exhaled sharply, folding the notebook to his chest. Liana's voice cracked. He wrote that the day his fever returned. Grant's knuckles whitened around the notebook. "He knew?" he asked, the words trembling. "Children know more than we let them," Liana whispered. He ran his thumb over the fragile handwriting. "I used to think legacy was a skyscraper," he said slowly. "Turns out it's crayon on paper." They sat there in silence, listening to the shelter noise, the chatter, the thuds of childish games, laughter trailing down narrow halls. It was more alive than his mansion ever felt. Then a small girl tugged Liana's skirt. "This is yours, right?" she said, handing her a folded piece of paper. Liana unfolded it. It was written in the same blocky letters as the notebook, "Give Daddy this when he stops running." Grant froze. "He left you another message." Liana handed it to him. Inside was an address written with a wobbly crayon, "Old Maple Church, playground behind." He frowned. "Why there?" Liana looked uneasy. "That's where his mother is buried." The realization hit like a rushing wave. For years, Grant had avoided the place, burying both grief and guilt beneath work. Now, fate, no, his son, was dragging him back. "We're going tonight," he said with resolve. Liana nodded faintly, but fear lingered in her eyes. "I'll go," she said. "But you have to brace yourself. He planned more than you think." If you want to know what's waiting at the church, like and subscribe. Twilight fell before they reached the old maple church. The gate creaked, the candles lining the path dimmed to ash. Time had not been kind to this place, it stood cold but holy, weather-worn yet sacred. Behind it, the small playground waited, a swing swaying in the cold wind. Grant stepped forward cautiously. The memories were heavy here, his wife's laughter, Eliam's baby cries echoing through the chapel when they baptized him. Liana followed slowly, holding a flashlight. "Look there," she said, pointing toward a tree. At its base lay a weathered tin box marked by rain and years. Grant crouched and brushed the dirt away, hands trembling. Inside were three objects, a seashell, a photo, and a folded note sealed by tape. He picked up the photo first, Eliam, holding his late wife's picture, standing right under this same tree. The seashell looked oddly out of place. "He never saw the ocean," Grant murmured. "He didn't have to," Liana said softly. "That came from your wife's keepsake box. He wanted you to know he remembered her, for both of you." Grant opened the final note. "When I turn 8, let's come here together, Daddy. Mom's sea sound says she still waits." He exhaled with a shudder. He believed she was in the sound of the sea, Grant whispered, holding the shell to his ear. A faint echo of wind filled it, a cruel illusion, yet oddly comforting. Liana knelt beside him. "Do you see now? He wasn't asking you to mourn him. He was leading you home, to them." Grant looked up, eyes wet, voice trembling between repentance and peace. "You think he planned all of this? I think he saw your emptiness and tried to fill it the only way he knew." The church bell tolled faintly. Grant rose, his heart pounding with new clarity. "Then I'll finish what he started." "What do you mean?" "This place," he said, glancing around the forgotten playground. "I'll rebuild it. For kids like him. It'll carry his name, and his mother's." Liana smiled faintly through tears. "That's what he wanted. You just didn't know you were reading instructions, not memories." Grant looked up at the sky. For the first time, no boardroom or mansion loomed overhead, only stars and a faint perfume of soil and sea wind mixed with rain. It humbled him. "Liana," he said softly, "thank you for keeping him alive where I failed." She shook her head. "I didn't keep him alive, sir. Love did." Their eyes met for a long, silent second, two people bound not by blood, but by a boy's grace. The wind grew colder. Leaves whispered through gravestones. Somewhere, a faint child's laughter echoed, not haunting, but healing. Grant turned to face the playground one last time. "We'll call it Eliam's place." The decision brought more peace than any fortune ever had. They walked back toward the church gate. But before they reached the car, Liana stopped suddenly. "Wait," she said, reaching into her coat pocket. "He left one more page inside the notebook, I didn't understand it before." She handed it over. The back page had faint pencil imprints under old crayon lines. Grant used his phone light, words appeared slowly, ragged but powerful. "If Daddy ever brings laughter back to this place, tell him the promise is complete." Liana's eyes welled again. "That's his voice, sir. Waiting to be heard." Grant closed the notebook, pressing it gently to his chest. For once, silence didn't feel empty. It felt answered. Like and subscribe if you believe love outlives every loss. They left the church in silence, headlights cutting through thin fog. The world outside hadn't changed, but Grant Hartwell had. He understood what his son meant now. Listening wasn't hearing words, it was following what remained unsaid. As the car rolled past the edge of town, Liana whispered a quiet prayer, thankful, not sorrowful. But neither of them noticed the figure waiting by the church gate. A social worker clutching a legal file marked Grant Hartwell estate petition. Inside were sealed forms requesting child custody review, requested by the Small Orphan Boys Foster Agency. Under backstory of placement was a handwritten note from the deceased Eliam himself. I met him once. If I go away, can Daddy help him stay? The social worker looked after the departing car, sighing. Guess you got your wish, kid. The wind rose again, lifting the leaves into the air, like laughter made visible, rustling toward the horizon. Grant will soon discover Eliam pre-chose the boy who now lives with him. The following week began with a sky that couldn't decide whether to rain or shine, an indecision that mirrored Grant Hartwell's state of mind. Every step he took toward redemption felt real, yet unreal. The past stalked him quietly, not as a shadow but as a mirror. He stood outside Eliam's place, the new name already carved onto a marble signboard at the church playground. Children's laughter floated through the air, light and fleeting. It should have been comforting. Instead, it hurt. From a distance, Liana Brooks watched him, holding the restored notebook close like scripture. She could see what no one else did, the war between guilt and rebirth happening behind his eyes. Grant turned when he sensed her presence. They start the first renovation tomorrow, he said. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled. That's what he wanted, sir. He nodded. But it still feels like forgiveness I didn't earn. You didn't, she said quietly. You're learning to live it instead. He managed a faint smile. That sounds like something my son would have said through you. Liana didn't deny it. She simply replied, maybe he still is. A gust of wind brushed through them, scattering the sound of bells and children playing. The scene looked almost holy, beauty built over tragedy. But that illusion cracked when a black sedan pulled up near the gate. A woman in a gray suit stepped out, holding a folder. Mr. Hartwell? Yes. She extended her hand. I'm Angela Green, from the county's social care department. I believe you're fostering a child temporarily, the one from the shelter. Grant hesitated. Yes. He's inside the house with my housekeeper. Angela's tone softened. We'll need to discuss his placement more formally. It seems your son had a connection with the boy before he passed. What connection? She offered the folder. Inside were scanned copies of hospital registration forms, eyewitness notes, and one small crayon drawing. It showed two figures holding hands, a tall one and a small one, with the words, "My friend won't be alone when I'm gone." Grant's breath hitched. He wrote this. Your son drew it while hospitalized, the woman confirmed. He kept repeating the boy's name. Said they made a promise to each other. If you feel the heartbreak here, like and subscribe to stay with the story. Liana covered her mouth, tears threatening to spill. He promised to, what? Angela flipped a page. To take care of his friend if he couldn't anymore. Grant stepped back, shaken. The sound of children laughing now mocked his heartbeat. So you're saying my boy, before he died, chose this child for me? Not in legal terms, of course, Angela said. But emotionally? Yes. The staff said your son wouldn't eat unless that boy was given extra food too. Their bond was rare. Liana whispered, he left you a living memory, not something to mourn, but something to finish. Grant turned away toward the playground. The world swam in colors he couldn't steady, crayon blues and bright reds, bleeding into tears. His son had known what kind of healing he needed before he did. I want full guardianship, he said suddenly. Angela blinked. That's a big step, Mr. Hartwell. I've missed too many steps already. His voice cracked but didn't falter. I won't miss this one. That evening, the mansion was alive in a gentler way. The little boy, Noah, sat cross-legged on the carpet building towers from Eliam's old blocks. He balanced each piece with the patience of someone who knew how fragile joy could be. From the archway, Grant watched him silently. Every block that fell felt like a test, and every rebuild, a sermon. Noah looked up, smiling shyly. "You watching me again?" Grant chuckled, embarrassed. "Maybe I am." "You're not sad tonight," Noah said. "Eliam wouldn't like you sad forever." Grant froze. The name came so easily from Noah's mouth. "You, remember him?" The boy nodded. "He said you were just busy being grown up. Said growing up sometimes makes people forget they're supposed to laugh." Grant inhaled sharply. "He said that?" "Aha. He told me you'd remember when you were ready." It was like hearing Eliam's ghost through innocence itself. Noah reached into his pocket and pulled out a paper star. "He made me this. Said to give it to you." Grant unfolded it with careful fingers. Inside, faint pencil words read, "When Daddy smiles again, the sky will look like home." That was the breaking point. Grant sat down beside Noah, head bowed. Laughter, soft and raw, escaped him, half joy, half grief. Liana entered quietly with tea, witnessing the warmth spreading through the once-cold room. "He's starting to smile," Noah said proudly, like reporting to someone invisible. She whispered toward the ceiling, "You can rest now, little one." The next morning brought light, and an unexpected envelope slipped under the front door. It bore no sender, only scrawled cursive. "Property of Eliam's room." Grant immediately went to his son's untouched study. Dust danced across gold light spilling from the window. On the desk sat a small tape recorder. He pressed play. The hiss of static filled the air, then Eliam's voice, faint but steady. "Hi, Dad. If you find this, it means Miss L kept her pinky promise. You're probably crying right now, don't. I just wanted to tell you you're still my hero, even when you were busy." Grant's throat tightened. The sound of his son's giggle followed. "I left something in my blue locker at school. It's for your heart, not your work. Bye, Daddy. I love you bigger than the sun." He stopped the tape and sat perfectly still, hands trembling. The boy had left breadcrumbs across time, one more letter, one more hidden truth. Liana entered slowly. "What did he say?" "That there's something else. A locker." Her eyes widened. "Do you want to go?" Grant nodded, grabbing his coat. Like and subscribe to follow this heart-wrenching next discovery. The school halls smelled exactly as they had 7 years ago, of chalk and sanitizer, hope and memory. Children's artwork still papered the walls. The principal recognized Grant instantly. "Mr. Hartwell. I never thought I'd see you here again. I need access to a locker," he said softly, voice stripped of pride. He showed the note. The man hesitated, then sighed. "Follow me." Down the corridor, they stopped before a faded blue locker marked number 213. Grant unlocked it with the key found inside the tape recorder's case. The hinge creaked open. Inside was a small cardboard heart, handmade, uneven, but still bright. On it, "For when he loves again." And beneath that, another photograph. It showed Eliam, Liana, and Noah standing together at the hospital garden, the one Grant never visited. His son's arm was draped around Noah's shoulders, grinning wide despite the 4 tubes. Grant traced the picture's edges, his vision blurring. "Oh God," he whispered. "He knew all along." Liana pressed a hand to her mouth. "Sir, you don't think?" He nodded slowly, almost reverently. "He didn't want me to build a legacy. He wanted me to build a family." He turned to Noah, who'd followed quietly down the hallway, curiosity wide in his eyes. "Mr. Grant," the boy asked shyly. "Are you okay?" Grant knelt until they were eye to eye. "You don't ever have to call me that again," he said. "From now on, you can call me Dad." The boy blinked, unsure. Like, really? Grant smiled through tears. Really? Noah ran into his arms without hesitation. In that moment, the man who once measured his life in billions found something wealth could never price: peace. They returned home to a sunset that bathed the mansion in gold instead of gray. Light touched every surface gently, as if the house itself forgave its owner. Liana stood by the door watching them. The serenity on Grant's face said more than words ever could. She could see it clearly, the curse of regret finally ending. Grant turned toward her and said softly, "You kept every promise he made you." "I only did what love told me was right," she murmured. "You gave me back my son, even when I didn't deserve him." "And he gave you another to finish the story," she said, smiling at Noah's laughter echoing through the halls. The ringing of the phone broke the quiet. Grant reached for it. "Hello? Mr. Hartwell?" It was Angela again. Her voice sounded shaken. "There's something I forgot to mention earlier. The shelter records show your late wife also volunteered years ago, under a different name. That's how she met Liana." Grant froze. "My wife knew her?" "Yes. Liana was her student in a community program for young mothers. I think Eliam might have known more about that bond than anyone realized." He turned slowly toward Liana, whose face had gone pale. "Is that true?" he asked. Her lips parted slowly, trembling. I wasn't ready to tell you. Your wife helped me when I had nothing. She gave me this job. Eliam always told me he saw her face when I sang him to sleep." Grant felt the world tilt again, but this time not from despair, from awe. "He brought all of this full circle," he said softly. "He built every bridge before leaving." Liana's tears finally fell freely. "He didn't want us broken. He wanted us bound." Grant placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Then let's honor that." The evening settled around them like a lullaby. Noah ran back into the room, waving a glow-in-the-dark star he'd found among Eliam's toys. "Dad, can we hang this in my room?" Grant smiled. "Not just one, let's hang 1,000. He led the boy upstairs, laughter filling the corridors that had once echoed only loneliness. Liana followed quietly, heart light for the first time in years. As Grant tucked Noah into bed, the boy asked, "Dad, do you think Eliam can see us?" Grant looked at the ceiling, eyes wet but bright. "I think he never stopped." Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, but inside, peace had its own sound. Like and subscribe before we uncover what Eliam's final message truly meant. A deeper truth about Eliam's final message remains undiscovered. The winter dawn broke slow and pale, carrying a quiet that felt holy. It wasn't silence, it was something deeper, the stillness of things finally at rest. For the first time in years, Grant Hartwell woke to sound instead of emptiness. The gentle rhythm of little feet running down the hallway reminded him of mornings long buried under meetings and markets. Noah's laughter drifted faintly from the living room, where light was already cutting through drawn curtains. Grant sat up, took a long breath, and stared at his reflection in the mirror, hair streaked with gray, eyes softer, lighter. The man looking back wasn't the billionaire the world once knew. He was something rarer, a father who finally understood what legacy truly meant. Downstairs, Liana Brooks placed fresh lilies across Eliam's photo frame. The room smelled of lemon polish and dawn. Her hands trembled as she turned on the piano, the notes of Eliam's final recording still stored safely within it. She whispered, "Good morning, little one. He's finally smiling again." Grant entered quietly behind her. "You still talk to him every day," he said. She turned lightly, smiling. "You'd do the same if you knew he's still listening." Grant nodded, resting his hand on the piano's lid. "I do know. Somewhere, he's hearing us continue what he started." He pulled out an envelope from his jacket. "Angela from the social office sent this late last night. She found documentation that completes Noah's adoption." Liana clasped a hand over her lips. "Oh, he's officially yours." "He's officially ours," Grant corrected gently. "Because you were always the one who kept us alive when I lost everything." Tears welled in her eyes as she touched his arm. Grant smiled faintly. "But there's one thing left unfinished. You saw that message on the piano screen, track 7, ask Miss L tomorrow. I need to know what else he left us." Her throat tightened. "I think I know where it is. If this moment hit your heart, like and subscribe to keep the memory alive." They drove to the old chapel at Maple Church, the place where everything began. Snowflakes fell lazily from a gray sky, coating gravestones like paper blessings. Grant walked slower than usual, as if each crunch of snow carried a weight of gratitude. Liana stopped by the restored piano in the church's corner. "He stored one last thing here," she whispered. "I never opened it because I promised I'd wait until you were ready." She opened the drawer beneath the piano bench and carefully removed a blue-sealed envelope marked with 3 words in uneven handwriting: "Final track, stars." Grant swallowed hard. His fingers traced the worn edges before tearing the envelope open. Inside was a flash drive, silver, slightly scratched, and a folded sheet of paper. He unfolded the note first. "Daddy and Miss L, this is the song I didn't finish because I wanted you to. It only plays right when you're both together." Grant's vision blurred instantly. Wordlessly, he inserted the drive into the piano's console. The screen flickered. "Play track 7. He pressed yes. A familiar melody filled the chapel, Ilium's lullaby, but slower this time, aching with ghosted softness. Then, halfway through, the music paused. Over the chord progression came his voice, older somehow, thoughtful in a way no 7-year-old should sound. "Dad, Miss L, if you hear this, that means you built the house I dreamed of. Thank you for making my stars stay bright." There was a pause, then his giggle. "Miss L, you promised me you'd keep Daddy's heart beating, and you did. But now it's your turn to dance. Get out of that uniform." Liana chuckled through tears. "That boy." Ilium's voice continued. "Dad, one day you'll see the sky without walls. That's when you're done counting time." Grant's breath hitched. Then the music swelled again, new notes layered over the old theme, as though the boy had stitched hope out of melody. The piano trembled with life, not from the speakers, but through the keys themselves, moving by unseen touch. They stood together, watching as the song filled every inch of space between sorrow and redemption. When the final note faded, the console lit one more time. "This track never ends." Liana gasped. "It's looping." Grant smiled softly. "No. It's reminding us love doesn't stop, it just changes keys." Outside, the snow began to fall harder, blurring the horizon. Later that evening, back at the mansion, Noah found them in the study. "Dad," he said, holding up a drawing, "look. I made what Ilium drew, but with more stars." Grant knelt beside him. The paper showed 3 figures under glowing circles, a man, a woman, and a boy, all smiling beneath a tree of light. He couldn't speak for a moment. Then, softly, he said, "It's perfect." Noah beamed. "Miss L said stars are people watching when we make good choices." Liana looked toward Ilium's photograph. She was right again. Grant turned to her. "You're staying, aren't you? Not just as Noah's caretaker, this is your home now." Her eyes widened. "I'm not sure that's right, sir." "It's what he wanted," Grant said, voice steady. "He drew you in every future he imagined. That's family." Liana's composure crumbled, but her smile broke through tears. "Then I'll stay. For him, and for you." They embraced, no words, no awkwardness, just the shared relief of 2 lives finally stitched back together where grief once tore through. The wind moaned against the window panes. Then thunder murmured softly, as though heaven itself cleared its throat to speak. Like and subscribe if this moment gave you chills of peace and love. 3 months later, Ilium's place stood complete. Built across the same ground that had once been a crumbling playground, it now gleamed like hope materialized in brick and light. Children of every color and story played beneath murals inspired by Ilium's sketches. The front gate bore his handwritten letters carved into glass, "Here, love stays." The opening day drew hundreds. Reporters, parents, and children packed into the churchyard while snow melted into spring petals. But Grant's speech that day wasn't about money or rebuilding, it was about remembering. He stood on the small podium, his tone gentle yet commanding. "I spent half my life collecting everything that could be measured. And then a 7-year-old taught me the only thing worth counting was moments spent with love." The crowd went quiet. Cameras flashed, catching his trembling smile. He continued, "This place isn't charity. It's inheritance. The kind my son left without realizing he did. Every wall here carries laughter he never got to hear. I hope you will fill it for him." He stepped back as applause spread, but his hands shook slightly. Liana reached forward, steadying them. "He'd be so proud," she whispered. "I can feel it," Grant replied, voice breaking softly. Noah ran to his side with a pair of balloons, yellow and blue, Ilium's favorite colors. Grant lifted him, the boy's small weight grounding him in the most beautiful way. "Ready to cut the ribbon, Dad?" Noah asked eagerly. Grant looked down, nodding with tears in his eyes. "Ready, son." Together, they cut it. The crowd erupted. The first children ran through the gates, laughter spilling like sunlight. As the ceremony ended, Liana lingered by the church steps. She looked skyward, the clouds shifting apart just long enough for a single, bright star to appear in broad daylight. Her breath caught. "Grant," she whispered, pointing upward. He looked, then simply smiled. "He's right there." Liana's tears fell freely. "He always shows up when we remember peace." Grant reached for her hand, steady, warm, finally belonging. "Let's go home," he said. The evening glowed soft and golden inside the mansion. Noah had fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in his blanket. The piano played quietly on loop, Ilium's song whispering through hidden speakers. Its title now displayed forever on the console, Track 7, "The Family Stays." Grant poured Liana a cup of tea. "Do you ever think he knew this would happen exactly as it has?" "I think he believed it into existence," she murmured. Grant stared into his cup for a long moment, then said quietly, "You kept your promise to him." Liana looked surprised. "What promise?" "The night he died." "I remember now. He said, 'Tell Daddy I'm not angry anymore.' And you did, just not with words. You told me with how you lived." Her eyes glistened. "Then I suppose I did keep it." "You did," Grant said. "And I kept mine." I listened again. The room filled with content stillness. Laughter replaced sorrow, memories softened into love. Outside, snow began to fall again, a spring snow, brief and bright. It kissed the window glass like blessings returning home. Grant leaned back, letting out the sigh of a man finally whole. "You know," he said softly, "he left one more unfinished thing." "What's that?" "Our story." Liana frowned gently. "You think there's more?" He smiled faintly. "There's always more when love writes it." The piano responded to his words, the soft hum of Ilium's refrain beginning again, like a heartbeat renewed. Liana rose, crossing to the window. "It's snowing stars," she said softly. Grant joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "No," he whispered, watching snowflakes glitter under the lamplight. "It's him saying goodnight." The clock chimed midnight. Grant carried Noah upstairs, tucking him beneath the covers in Ilium's old room, now shared, filled with warmth, light, and peace. The faint melody continued from downstairs, looping endlessly. He paused at the door, whispering to the dark, "Good night, son. You can rest now." Behind him, Liana stood quietly, her hands clasped, her eyes watching the man she once served now be transformed by grace. As they turned away, a soft electronic blink sounded from the piano below, its final gift awakening. The screen lit up one last time. The recorded boy's voice echoed faintly, distant but clear. "Daddy, Miss L, thank you for finishing my song. Now it's your turn to live it." The message faded. The words, "End of file," appeared, followed by one last flourish of music. Grant and Liana exchanged trembling smiles. No sadness this time, only sweet, full peace. The house exhaled with them, the same way it had inhaled his grief years ago. They stood in the doorway as the lights dimmed naturally into quiet. Outside, the snow finally stopped. Only one thing moved now, the faint flicker of a star across the cloud-dark sky. Grant whispered into the stillness, "I can finally breathe again." Liana nodded, eyes bright. "He would want you to." He looked at her, smiling softly. "Then I will." And together, they stepped inside a future that no longer hurt to imagine, one built from the pieces a small, dying boy had left behind, and made whole by the love he'd taught them both to carry. Like and subscribe to honor stories that remind us love never dies.